Kia ora, hello, and welcome to Anyway, the podcast where I unpack the chaos of reality TV. I am your host, Natalie McMurray, coming to you from Aotearoa, New Zealand. Today, I'd like to start by giving a shout out to my husband. Yesterday, we were at our local pub chatting. He told me that he wanted to fact check me on something that I'd said on the pod. That thing was, I'm going to go ahead and assume that there is a 90-year-old man that has had a baby. Obviously not the man having a baby, but with a woman. You know what I mean. You knew what I meant at the time as well. So he Googles oldest father ever, or something to that effect. He finds that there was a 92-year-old man who had a baby with a woman in her late 30s, which comes as no surprise to me, clearly. Not only was there a 92-year-old man, but he then goes on to tell me there was a 102-year-old man who had a baby with a 38-year-old woman. It was at this point I told him, you know what? Maybe I was wrong. Maybe we should be freezing sperm. In fact, let's freeze all the sperm and get rid of all the men. Not only did he fact check my ass, he proved me right yet again. It's an ongoing thing in our relationship. I'd like to thank my husband for always keeping me humble and in a constant state of ambivalence for being right about the most fucked up of things. Anyway, speaking of fucked up things, let's get into the final episode of Valley for this season. With the reunion part 3. We open with the people mid-discussion of what went down at Jasmine's wedding, which in turn brings us to the conversation of Danny's drinking, which is such fun stuff. Jasmine would like to know what happened at her wedding that she wasn't privy to. Nia says nothing happened at the wedding. Zack tells us that Nia had said, "Don't tell Danny that there's an after party." Nia feels the need to point out that they were all aware of the after party, but she wanted to make it clear to them that Danny was in no way, shape, or form going to said after party. Which is weird. Your husband is a grown-ass man. He can't make his own decisions. Not only is Nia coddling Danny, but so is Jesse. He tells us some weird story about Danny in a drunken stupor at the wedding or after the wedding. Something about how he wasn't wearing shoes and he was just in a vest watching some sports game apparently. And Jesse was trying to get him to go up into his room. I didn't really understand the ins and outs of it. Jesse then tells us about a pact that him and Danny have made to get each other out of drunken situations. And I think that really tells us all we need to know about these men. They need to grow the fuck up. Lacey is like, instead of all the projection, blame, and bullshit, how about you just take some accountability? Which is the smartest thing anyone has said at the reunion thus far. We go back to the semantics of what Nia said to Danny about the after party. Everyone is yelling at each other, and I guess the crux of the situation is Danny was drunk, Nia didn't want him to go to the after party, but she's trying to play it off like, we just wanted to chill in the hotel room after the wedding. Lala says that's a red flag. And all of a sudden, Kristen is getting activated. She's like, no, I'm fucking stepping in. The way that Kristen jumps to Nia's defense is kind of wild to me. I think Nia is more than capable of defending herself. Also, she's defending her against Lala. I know that Lala has a sharp tongue, but she's been pretty docile at this reunion, given how we've seen her act at other reunions. Right? In my mind, Kristen is also making the situation a lot worse because she says something like, if that were me, I would have been like, don't you dare tell Luke there's an after party. She's trying to stick up for Nia, but she's just gone against what Nia is trying to portray. I don't get it. Andy wants to know if Danny thinks anyone owes him an apology. Nia is shaking her head, no. Like, don't you fucking do it, Danny. Do not say what I think you're gonna say. But he does anyway. He thinks Janet owes him an apology. Oh, and Jason too. Janet has looked so uncomfortable this whole time. I understand her not wanting to, but I do wish that she would speak up a little more. Jason says he was going to apologize, but then Danny acted like a drunken fool yet again in San Diego. So he decided against it, because there was no change in Danny's behavior. Apparently a bunch of people said to Danny in Mexico that Janet should apologize to Danny. I think this was when half of them were around the pool and half of them were out shopping. Nia rightly points out to Danny that there is more context to the situation now, given Janet has shared what she's been through in the past. Danny could give zero fucks about that. He wants his damn apology. Janet did actually apologize to Nia in Mexico for the words that she used in regard to Danny last season. And honestly, I think that's all she should apologize for. Brittany is talking about how she compared her relationship to Jack's to Nia and Danny's. She relates to Nia having to protect Danny all the time because she used to do that for Jack's. Brittany says, I'm not comparing Danny to Jack's, even though she is, and rightly so. I think we can compare the two, actually. They both exhibit despicable behavior towards women, and neither of them hold themselves accountable for that behavior. Neither of them are making any meaningful change in their life to stop that behavior. In fact, they're perpetuating it. Just because one of them is a raging coke fiend doesn't make the other any less nefarious. Now Nia and Danny are blaming filming the show for Danny's drinking. Because it's a high-pressure cooker situation. He had anxiety, stress, and everything was heightened. To that I say, you shouldn't put yourself in the position of being on a show that makes you feel that way and therefore act out in a negative fashion. And also, there are 12 other people on the show with you who are not coping with the anxiety and stress by drinking. Perhaps take a leaf out of one of their books. Andy asks what Danny's regrets are from the season. He regrets being a dick to his wife on camera because he now has to deal with all of this bullshit. Andy's like, so why do you keep drinking while you're filming a TV show? Danny is trying to say that these moments are rare, but it's all we seem to see. Andy rightly points out that they seem to happen pretty consistently while we're watching. Danny keeps alluding to working with someone who is helping him get a handle on the situation. I'd like some more details around this because every time he mentions it, it's all very vague. Are you working with a sobriety coach? A doctor? A therapist? Are you attending AA? Is he just talking to Jesse about getting him out of sticky situations? Like, what's the deal? We've just spent what feels like 5 hours talking about Danny being problematic while drinking. When Andy asks him, do you think there's anything you think you're being held to the fire unfairly about? He responds, yeah, drinking. Cue a collective sigh from everyone around him. You can tell that these people genuinely hate Danny. Andy is correct. Danny does think that this is a false narrative. I don't know why so many people would give their time and energy to a false fucking narrative, but here we are. Danny is a dummy. There's no two ways about it. And for some godforsaken reason, Danny is now invoking the name of Jax Taylor yet again. I'm with Lala on this one. He isn't with us. Can we focus on this season? That's one of the things that really irks me about reunions. We always seem to be going back several seasons to some distant drama that people have long forgotten about. If it only happened once in a while, it wouldn't be so insufferable. But it seems to happen every 5 minutes. On the Southern Hospitality reunion, they discussed what happened 2 seasons ago for a good 30 minutes. I literally cannot. You can talk about Trevor and how he's living in France for 10 minutes, but you can't hold Emmy accountable for a racist bullshit? What is even happening? Anyway, enough about Southern Hospitality. It seems like that show's going to hell in a handbasket. Andy brings up Lala saying that she hopes Nia will leave Danny on Watch What Happens Live. He says, Vicky from San Diego said, do you really think Nia becoming a single mother of 4 would be better than the steps they're taking in therapy together? There's a big difference between her saying she hopes Nia leaves Danny because he treats her like garbage and saying she wishes Nia would be a single mother. I get that the outcome would essentially be the same, but saying the former does not mean she wishes the latter. I don't believe Lala wishes ill will to Nia at all. In fact, I think she wants the exact opposite, which is why she said what she said in the first place. According to Danny, Lala incited a lot of hatred with this comment. Lala is in no way, shape, or form taking that on, and nor should she. She's not responsible for what fans say and do. Also, Danny was getting way more hatred for the things that he said than anything Lala said, I'm sure. Just another way for Danny to shift the blame onto a woman for a situation that he has created himself. Anyway, Andy brings up the street sign that smacked Zack upside the head. He asks Zack, how's your head? And I half expected Zack to respond, No complaints lately, Andy. All I can think about when hearing that question is Miss Fame on RuPaul's Drag Race, not getting the joke from Elvira, Mistress of the Dark. I guess I'm the only one living life with Drag Race reruns going through my brain because Zach does not say no complaints. He says he didn't even have a headache that night. He's all, a little head wound ain't gonna keep me down. And he wants to talk about how Michelle asked Jesse to be mindful of his PDA with Lacey. Lacey points out that it's a double standard to ask for that, given the way that Michelle was with her ex Aaron in Hawaii last season. Michelle says that she understands that, but that is something that she needed from Jesse and not vice versa. We're not all looking for the same things equally in a partner, and affection just so happened to be something that Michelle was wanting from Jesse, that he, for some reason, never gave to her, which I still don't really understand. Was that the case at the start of their relationship as well? Or did he just start withholding it from her later down the line? Saying you're incapable of holding someone's hand or hugging them is wild. And Jesse doesn't even deny that he said that. Anyway, Lacey wants to jump off a bridge listening to Jesse and Michelle go back and forth with each other. She's definitely not alone in that sentiment. We move on to talking about how Janet opened up to Lala about what happened in her past. Janet says Lala always gives her great advice and keeps it real. She wanted to tell her about it so that going forward, Lala had the knowledge and could continue to give her the right advice. Even though the subject is dark, I found the way that Janet spoke refreshing, in the sense that she speaks with clarity and isn't trying to cloud the subject with details that don't matter, as opposed to four people in particular on the opposite couch. Andy wants to know how Janet's experience has shaped how she feels about certain things that happen within this particular group of people. She says that it was 12 when it happened, and a piece of her innocence was taken from her, which is always going to alter someone's perception on things, clearly. She goes on to say that all the therapy in the world doesn't change the way that your hair stands on the back of your neck when you feel something is not right. I can't say that every woman in the world understands the feeling that Janet is describing, but most of us do. 1 in 3 women is a heartbreaking statistic, especially when you consider a lot of victims don't report things that have happened to them, myself being one of them. Janet says that she lost a lot of trust in men and has a guard up because of it. And I'm right there with her. Andy brings up that Kristen was skeptical of the timing of Janet bringing up the story, which is absolutely diabolical to me. Kristen defends herself by saying that she had absolutely no idea at all what they were talking about. I don't really think there is any defense good enough to excuse you implying that someone is weaponizing their trauma. I understand that Kristen is trying to be empathetic, and I do believe that she has empathy for Janet now, after the fact, but her reaction is still feeling a little icky to me. Anyway, Andy talks about how Jasmine was frustrated with Kristen in San Diego for not letting her speak. He asked Jasmine, why do you think Kristen wasn't as receptive to your opinions as she was to Lala's? I have to say that since Jasmine has pointed that out, I have noticed, especially at the reunion, that people don't let her speak. Even in this exact moment, Kristen interrupts Jasmine when she's trying to express her feelings. Jasmine says she didn't want to make it about race, but of course she's going to feel that way, which is totally understandable. Ultimately, she knows that's not what it was with Kristen, and that it was Kristen's hatred of Janet that was overshadowing her giving support to Jasmine. We move on to how Kristen threw 3 of her best friends under the bus by saying that if we should be looking at anyone's drinking, it should be Jasmine, Brittany, and Zack, which is a super shitty thing to say. Kristen is really copping it this part of the reunion. Kristen seems remorseful. I get the feeling she's only remorseful because she was caught doing it. She apparently has no idea why she even said it. Clearly, she said it in defense of Danny, and because she was also trying to defend Nia yet again. Jasmine says, we're your family too. The grace that you extend to Danny and Nia should also be extended to us, because we will always be here for you. In other words, defend all your friends, not just the ones that you consider to be your allies on this show, or the couple that you weirdly look up to and want to emulate. Schwartz thinks that the demons of Kristen's past relationships are working with her inner saboteur to ruin her relationship with Luke. All I have to say to that is, if you were in a relationship with Sandoval, you'd probably have several demons too, creating issues. Well, let's be real. Anyway, Andy brings up cuckolding, and Jason wants us to know that he is no cuck. He does not participate in cuckolding. Lala and Danny are all, we didn't even know what that was. And Lala says, I pretend to be a freak, but I'm actually really basic. I don't really understand the benefit of pretending to be a freak, but okay. Whatever floats your boat. Moving on, Lala tells Danny that he will absolutely know when she is coming for him. It will be made abundantly clear. And what happened in Mexico was not Lala coming for him. Danny, like the fucking 5-year-old that he is, says, it was my birthday and everybody was attacking me. Nobody gave a shit then that it was your birthday, and nobody gives a shit now. It was also your anniversary, but clearly that's far less important. Schwartz giggles at something, and I can't tell if Zack is irritated or amused by the fact that all Schwartz has done this whole reunion is laugh here and there. Either way, he's correct. Schwartz is doing absolutely nothing. I think I heard someone say at one point he was asleep. I don't know if that's true, but he may as well be over at the craft services table getting a snack because he's not bringing anything to the conversation. Cut to a break. Then we come back, Andy gets into Brittany's Halloween party. But somehow we end up with Michelle and Jesse getting back into it. They're fighting back and forth about Isabella meeting new people. And I literally can't with these two anymore. They need to figure this shit out with a third party that is not the audience, or Lacey, or Andy. Get a fucking mediator. Brittany wants to talk about how fucked up it was for Kristen to gaslight her about the Nia manipulating Zack comment, which she claims she did not say. Yet another case of her having amnesia about something she said, even though she said it on camera. Insert eye roll here. I'm sitting here wondering why this episode is so damn long, and I've just realized I'm watching the extended version. Which becomes evident when Andy asks Schwartz about his shitty charcuterie boards at his Bond party. We get a flashback of him saying, it looks like us, which is still really funny. Why can't this man get it together? Andy takes a vote of hands who thinks Janet was out of line throwing a drink at Danny. Most of the people say that they thought it was. Janet wishes she hadn't done it because Danny was already doing a great job at making himself look like an idiot. While I agree, it was still fun to watch. I love how Andy asked Danny if he was drunk at the Halloween party. Did Andy watch the episodes back? He wasn't just drunk, he was completely shit-faced. Nia is trying to defend the fact that she called everyone here horrible people, multiple times. But we all know she meant it. She is very holier than thou. And the audience can tell that she thinks she's better than everybody else. She makes it obvious every time she plants that fake-ass smile on her face. Andy wants to end on a happy note. So there's really only one place he can go. Jasmine and Michelle's wedding. Janet says that their love is palpable and their marriage goals. Jasmine says her and Melissa are looking to have kids soon, and she tells Lala that she wants to talk sperm with her. Andy is all, well, you could talk to Luke. I would definitely like to advise Jasmine not to talk sperm donors with Luke. He's spreading his seed just fine, and I've just made myself feel physically sick. Melissa and Benji bring out the Vuv. We're now popping bottles. Andy gives a toast to one of the only happy couples on the Valley. By my calculations, there are 4, and 50% of those are queer, which we love to see. One of the last scenes we see is Lala saying she can't wait to get home and scrub her body clean, which is exactly how I feel finishing this season of the Valley. There's some fucking dark, deep-seated shit in these people, which I, for now at least, am happy to be moving on from. Anyway, that's it for today. If you enjoy anyway, please rate, like, subscribe, share, give me your feedback. I'm open to it all. You can tell me you hate me. You can tell me you love me. You can tell me about how you were knocked out by a street sign on a party bus in Mexico. Any form of dialogue is much appreciated. Thanks for listening. Have a good weekend. See ya. Wouldn't want to be ya.